Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library. Now, today I have an amazing guest on, and this one caught my attention because he and I had a brief conversation. And as he began to tell his story, I was just like, wow, that is amazing. Going from a recovered lawyer to, healthcare and beauty industry to insurance and all of the exciting twists and turns in journey. So we're going to dive into it. So stay tuned, and I'm going to hop into a conversation with my friend Peter. So stay tuned. All right, without further ado, let me bring on my guest, Peter Dziedzic. Welcome to the show, Peter. How are you?
Good, Terrell. How are you today?
I am great. I'm great. So I will say, I have been looking forward to this conversation because, as you and I briefly talked about all the twists and turns that entrepreneurs go through. And I thought it was amazing, like how, between you and your husband, you guys have lived that in so many different ways. So before we jump into that, so I would say, let's start prior to, let's go back to, the attorney phase and tell people a little bit about kind of your background, what led you to becoming an attorney, and then also, deciding that, hey, that wasn't the path.
Yeah. So actually, when I was in college, my plan was to be a pediatrician. And then I took organic chemistry and realized, no, that was not going to happen. I was lying to myself and didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. But the dean of my residential college actually sat me down and said, hey, knowing you, I think law school would be a great option for you. I think you'd really enjoy it. So I was like, yeah, this makes sense. So I applied. I went to law school. I loved law school. It was so much fun. Smart people talking about esoteric topics. It was awesome. After law school, I moved to Boston and began my practice. And my practice focused on M&A work in the private equity context. So I represented private equity clients when they were purchasing or selling portfolio companies. Sometimes I'd be brought on to them represent those portfolio companies as kind of an outside general counsel. And I also did a little bit of work on the debt side for those deals too, so helping to arrange the financing for those transactions. So I worked at two different big international firms here in Boston. And after about 8 years of practicing, I realized that it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and kind of came to a bit of a crossroads as to what I was going to do.
Nice. So now, as you kind of navigated that, you talked about it in the beginning of pediatrician was the original idea. Yeah. Then the idea, being an attorney. Now, were there any, I guess you say, how was it like emotionally, like making that switch? I mean, because what I often find is that a lot of people struggle with that, especially entrepreneurs. It's just that, hey, this path that you thought was the path you were going to go down, it has changed, and it's okay to change. But I find that a lot of people kind of struggle with that, like end up beating themselves up, like, no, I was supposed to be this, and they try to make it work, and then they just end up being unhappy. Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's definitely something you've got to kind of get over and deal with, especially like being a lawyer. Like, it's such a long process, and I'm sure this, true of anything where there's a kind of a postgraduate component to it. So a doctor or, anything like that. I went to school for 7 years. I got into a top firm. It was by all accounts successful externally, but I just wasn't happy. And so like at some point, you have to realize, okay, this is the path I thought I was supposed to be on, but if it's not fulfilling me, if it's not making me happy, if I'm a miserable human being because of it, is it really worth sacrificing my happiness for this, external belief that I'm supposed to be doing this? So it's funny, I got over it pretty quickly. The person that had a real hard time with it was my mother. And still to this day has a trouble. So my mother came to this country at 19 from Poland, and has very much an idea that successful people wear a suit and tie every day to work. And so when I stopped wearing a suit and tie to work, which I didn't really do as a lawyer, but kind of theoretically, that for her was really hard to deal with. And it's taken almost the full 11 years since I stopped practicing for her to realize it's okay. I'm doing well. I'm happier. This is what I was meant to do. But yeah, at some level, you got to kind of let go of that external stuff, right? It's about you. It's about your happiness. It's about doing what's fulfilling to you. And if other people judge you for that, well, that's on them. It's not really my problem.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting you say that because, one of the episodes I had on, gentleman, like his entire business is around, I guess you would almost say kind of like an agent for high school kids that play video games
Yeah.
and really connecting them with universities that are offering scholarships for, kids that play video games. And it's just like, we're living in this world now to where probably, when I was in high school and going through school, like it was a it was seen as a waste of time to spend time on video games. But I
Yeah.
think it's just for most people when they look at it, they're like, oh, that's not successful. But it's like you said, I mean, as things have changed and even assessing yourself is very interesting to see, and encouraging to see people who leave something that, hey, there was a lot of sunk cost that went into that.
Yep.
You can still take the skill sets with you, but pursue something different that makes you more fulfilled. So,
That's so true.
after leaving, the practice of law, what kind of opportunities were you kind of opening your eyes to before you settled on like, hey, here's my next step?
Well, it's funny because I had kind of internally made the choice, and actually, my husband and I were having conversations about how unhappy I was and how it was affecting my life, and it was actually random. So the next step was really random. We were on vacation in Vancouver, up in British Columbia, and we're walking down the street in Yaletown, the kind of shopping district there, and came upon this skincare slash spa called SCOA. And they had 3 locations, all of them in Canada. It was cool. It was different. This was back in 2009. So, most of the spas that we were familiar with were very frou-frou and kind of bubbling cherubs and Enya playing. And this wasn't that. And neither of us were big spa guys, but we still went in, made appointments. A couple days later, went to and had our appointments, really enjoyed it. And that night we were sitting down to dinner, and it was my husband who said, you hate being a lawyer. We've always, literally, we thought about opening our own business. We've never taken that step. He had a good job at the time working for a big insurance company, paid the bills, and was the one that said, why don't we approach these folks and think about bringing this concept to the States? And I thought he was insane because we knew nothing about spas or retail or owning a bit. I mean, nothing. Like, this was a big jump. But the more I thought about it, the more it kind of made sense. And so this is back in 2009. So no LinkedIn, not really Facebook. I sent an email to the store knowing that a husband and wife had kind of founded and owned the company, and said, hey, listen, I'm a lawyer in Boston, went to your shop, really enjoyed it, would love to chat about opening one of these up in Boston. And they responded, which was shocking. The first shocking thing that happened, we got on a phone call where they were like, hey, we'll give you 15 minutes to pitch. Got on the call, and I think it was 2.5 hours long. So I'm sitting in my office at the law firm, closed the door, dialing, calling Canada, and 2.5 hours later, we're realizing that there's something here. So that's August, 2009. A couple months later, we mutually decided, let's go for it. So the summer of 2010, we opened up our SCO location here in Boston. And, for the last 11 years, I've been running that. And now actually serve as the chief marketing officer for US Ecom for the brand as well. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey, definitely a different path, but and kind of fortuitous how it all happened.
Gotcha. Now, what was it like? I mean, going from practicing law, a lot of exposure to businesses and how they run from the M&A work, but really learning a new role in business and a new industry. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's funny. Everyone's always like, oh, you're a lawyer, so it must have been so great because you can negotiate all the contracts. And it's like, well, honestly, like I had a lease and I had an agreement with these folks up in Canada, but it wasn't like you're negotiating contracts like daily. I'm not, calling up my cotton pad supplier and being like, hey, we're going to negotiate our supply deal here. But what I was able to take from being a lawyer, and that was super helpful, especially given what I was doing in the law, as a corporate attorney doing private equity M&A, it was really a customer service role almost. I was kind of the interface between the external client, the private equity firm, and internal clients, the lawyers, the partners, the folks trying to get the deal done. And when you're charging, when you're being billed out at close to $1,000 an hour, you're going to provide a very high level of service. And so coming into this kind of retail spa environment, I think I was able to really kind of instill this level of service into our crew that the customer really appreciated. And so that was a big, it was a transferable skill, and kind of focusing on that aspect of it, that I knew how to provide service, allowed me to pick up on the rest of the things I needed to know. And, in hiring too, like having a good team that knew skincare and could kind of fill in the gaps for my lack of knowledge there until I picked that up was also super helpful as well.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Now, as you kind of travel that journey, like you said, now you're, head of, e-commerce marketing. Like, how did you navigate into developing the marketing skill to where, like, hey, you became in charge of, marketing on a bigger scale than just your store?
Well, yeah, and it's funny because it also goes to kind of our new business as well that you mentioned with the life insurance. It was getting thrown in the deep end. I had to learn how to market, right? I had a business, and we had to get customers in. And for me, being successful at marketing would be the easiest way to get folks in. And we were very fortunate early on. There's kind of a different marketing landscape back then. Newspapers and magazines still had editors that you could talk to and get them in. And we did a very good job early on in the existence of SCOA here in Boston to create the impression that it was the go-to place for a facial and kind of the go-to place for skincare generally. And we were able to build on that over time. And so really just kind of getting thrown into the deep end of having to pay the bills and have people come in, I was able to develop these marketing skills. And so that eventually led to what I'm doing now with our other business, Life Insurance Strategies Group. A couple of years ago, my husband decided to start a consulting business focused on the high net worth life insurance space. And initially, we were really just working with individuals, producers, life insurance companies on how to navigate the kind of black box of life insurance. But we needed to market ourselves. My husband needed to market the company. And so I was able to transfer those retail marketing skills into this life insurance consulting space. And what we found were a lot of life insurance producers and salespeople really liked what we were doing, thought it was different, thought it was fresh, thought it was modern. And so we started getting approached by those folks to do their marketing. And so for the last 2.5 years, we've had this content creation and marketing division where we're really taking these modern marketing concepts, applying it to a somewhat antiquated industry to help our clients tell their story, to help them differentiate themselves in a crowded marketplace. And so it's been an interesting switch to go from marketing myself and marketing my business to helping other folks market themselves and tell their stories and learn their voice and kind of express that across various channels.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I think that's pretty interesting for me because, in our firm, bookkeeping and for CFO services, we do work with some insurance companies. And one of the things that I find interesting is, typically when you get into industries like insurance and finance, there are a lot of compliance restrictions in place. Do you usually run into a lot of that as you're kind of helping them think through a marketing strategy, just the layers of compliance that they have to have around what they can and can't say?
Yeah, so I think that's one of our kind of points of differentiation from other marketing firms because we're not just a marketing firm. Because Jay, my husband, has these decades of experience in the life insurance industry and has that familiarity with the industry and with compliance and all these topics. We're able to, when we're creating the marketing, when we're thinking about a strategy, when we're thinking about what we're going to do, what we're going to write about, what we're going to produce, we're thinking about that compliance aspect because we know it exists. And so we've been very fortunate that when we're going through compliance with blog posts, websites, whatever it is we're creating, we haven't had a lot of pushback from the compliance folks because we've created with that already in mind. But yeah, it is an issue. You definitely have to be knowledgeable about what you can and cannot do. In insurance, it's slightly different depending on what kind of products you're selling and what kind of your business looks like. So really knowing what the customer or the client's business is, who their broker dealer is, what kind of compliance restrictions they have, and then making sure that what you produce in the first instance isn't going to come back being like, no way, like this is bad. And that's something that we're very good at just because we have that insurance industry expertise.
Gotcha. Nice. Now, one of the things you mentioned about was, with the, making it known that you guys are the go-to place for skincare and spa treatment, in that journey of kind of, defining your brand and your message, how many different, I guess you say, angles did you guys take with, hey, we want to be known for this, or we want to be known for this? Like, how was that journey of figuring that out?
Yeah, it was interesting for us, right? Because with SCOA, it was an existing brand, so we had kind of an existing brand message that we could use, which was this idea of personal training for your skin, where it was less frou-frou. It was almost like going to the gym. It was about, yes, a relaxing experience, but it was really an educational component. So that was different, and so we had that as a nice little hook to get folks in and kind of get them excited. But we also were cognizant of the fact that it's a Canadian brand that we're bringing to the States. And we really played up on that. And for some reason, and that really resonated with people. For some reason, they liked this idea that it was Canadian. I still don't quite understand why, but it worked. And then actually to this conversation, this idea of a lawyer quitting the law to start a spa, that was a compelling story, right? Like folks wanted to write about that. Folks wanted to talk about that. And so we were able to use the combination of those three things, this kind of existing brand message about what we did, this Canadian to US journey, and this lawyer to entrepreneur journey to make sure so we were able to not just get media hits in the normal kind of space where you see beauty stories, but we were also getting hits in the Boston Globe and the Boston Business Journal and the lawyer's paper. And so it was like a saturation of the media. And I think the key thing for us was, okay, if I'm going to pitch the story to you, what is the particular one of these kind of three interesting messages that's going to resonate the most to get you to write about it and write about it kind of in an interesting way? And so we were able to figure out those three messages pretty quickly, but it was a little bit of not a challenge, but a journey figuring out, okay, which one is going to resonate with you, the editor, so that you do cover us.
Nice. I can definitely see the advanced thought process, strategy, and the skill when it comes down to the marketing and the messaging. And, I can definitely tell that you guys probably do that very well with the insurance product. So what are the types of, kind of ideal clients for the insurance support that you guys provide? Like who would be an ideal client?
Yeah, so on the consulting side, which is what my husband runs, it's anybody who is entering the life insurance world, especially in the high net worth space, and is just a little bit scared, not even scared or concerned, or just it's overwhelming. They don't quite get it for a whole bunch of reasons, both purposeful and not. The industry can be very opaque. And so we're working with either the end client, so a high net worth individual, or sometimes we're working with a producer or even with a trusted advisor, so a lawyer, a CPA, a wealth management firm. And since we don't take commissions, we're an hourly fee on that side of the business, we have no skin in the game, right? So we're going to provide you a truly outside independent perspective on what's happening. And maybe that is you don't need insurance. And for us, that's fine because we're not relying upon that sale to make our money at the end of the day. We can really provide you. So it's really anyone, especially high net worth individuals, looking at kind of more niche products, premium finance, private placement, foreign nationals looking to come to the United States and doing some pre-immigration planning. Those are the clients on that side. For the marketing content side, it's interesting. Most of that work for us is going to be with life insurance producers, and it's folks who are open-minded. It's folks who are not so caught up in kind of what's worked in the past, old notions of how marketing happened. You're not going to go to the local Rotary lunch and get clients anymore, right? Like that world is ending, it's true. I mean, especially for younger clients. We see it in our spa, and I tell the story all the time to our life insurance clients. We have guests come in for a facial, and I'll ask them, hey, do you want to set up your next appointment while you're here? They'll be like, no, it's fine. They'll walk outside and get on their phone, and I can see them through the window making their next appointment on the app, right? They do not want to talk to you, right? And so if you're trying to sell a product like life insurance to someone who does not want to talk to you, well, you're going to have to go to the spaces where they're listening. And so you're going to have to go online. So, life insurance producers who are willing to kind of take a little bit of a leap with us, to trust when we say, hey, we're going to do these things in these virtual spaces. It's going to work. It's going to be different for you. It might be slightly uncomfortable. You might not understand quite why we're doing it at first. That's great. But having said that, I do like when a client pushes back a little bit because it helps keep me on my toes. And I think when there's a little bit of tension between what we're saying and what they're saying, that can really sharpen and define the message to a way that's beneficial.
Nice. So people are interested in finding out what you guys are doing business with you. Where can they find you online?
So our website is lifeinsurancestrategygroup.com. So they can go there. It talks all about our services, what we do on both the consulting and the marketing side. Everything's on there. They can reach out to us as well. And I would be remiss if I did not, after saying all that stuff about the digital world. We're also available on all social channels except for TikTok. I haven't pulled the trigger there to do a TikTok yet, but we have an Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Life Insurance Strategies Group.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, before we wrap up, one question actually, I have two more questions.
Go for it.
This one may be a little more controversial for some people. Is now, in this journey, what did work-life balance look like for you?
It's funny, right? So like I had none as a lawyer, right? Like and there I had none and had no control over it, right? Like I was always at someone else's beck and call, either a partner or a client. So there was none. And so I was like, I'm gonna have life work balance. To some extent there is. Like I'm able to control my own hours, right? Like with the retail company, the spa, like it's closed at 8 o'clock. Like no one's calling up at midnight with a facial emergency. So there's not that outside aspect. Same thing with the life insurance company. Like life insurance folks aren't calling us at midnight being like, hey, I need a LinkedIn post for tomorrow. What are you gonna do? So that aspect of it where it's more in my control is definitely a difference from being a lawyer. But like we work a lot. Like I don't think people understand the emotional, the time, the just like mental commitment you have to make when you own your own business. We work pretty much 6 days a week now. We take Saturdays off, but we're working 6 days a week on our businesses. And it's a lot, and it's tough to take vacations. It's tough to kind of do those things. You have to really be purposeful. There's no one, I can't just say, hey, I'm taking a vacation next week. So-and-so is going to handle these things, because it's just us. And so, if we are going to get away for a period of time, it has to be a purposeful, thoughtful process where we set that up, set the expectations with our clients, and kind of create the devices necessary to be able to handle that. So it's like your child. It's like having a child. Like our businesses are like our children. And, if you have a child, how all consuming that is. And even when when they're not in the room and we're not working, you're still thinking about it. You're still worrying about it. And I think that's something folks don't necessarily get when they think about someone owning their own business. It is all consuming. It really is.
I say that one is controversial because a lot of people that I've talked to, they have, I would say, a lot of people have varying opinions, and typically the ones that have the most, I guess you say, more freedom-focused opinion are those that are probably looking from the outside looking in.
Yes.
But all of the business owners that I talk to, their answers are very similar to yours.
But think about it. Like if you work at a normal job, right? Like you get a paycheck every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is, right? Like what that paycheck's going to be. It's going to be in your bank account. For us, like we don't get that. Like I know if we want to pay our bills, we got to hustle. We got to work. We got to like create, at the store, create customers. Same thing, create customers in the insurance business and like do the work and get paid. And so, there's no certainty. And I think that's actually a big thing when people are thinking about making that leap is you need to really have a tough, unemotional look at yourself and say, can I handle this? Can I handle the uncertainty? Can I handle the ups and downs? Can I handle, not getting a paycheck? You know what I mean? Can I handle the sacrifices you're going to have to make in terms of time and relationships and everything like that? So to do it and to do it well.
Awesome. Well, to wrap up, one question that I do have is, when you think about your journey and the things that you've gone through and things that you've learned, what's one final piece of advice or wisdom you would share with other business owners? And it can be a reiteration of something you've already said, or it can be something new.
Yeah. So, I think there's kind of two related thoughts kind of come in one thought. I think, like what we're talking about, there's going to be ups and downs, right? You're going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen outside of your control that affect your business in a negative way. And it sucks. It really does. And I think it's important that when those things happen, when you make a mistake, when something bad happens, you actually do take a beat and kind of mourn or wallow. I think there's an element of, a lot of folks would be like, just fight through and like move on. And yeah, you should definitely, once you had a second, see what you can learn about that lesson, move forward, apply the lessons, make sure you don't make that mistake again, see how you can kind of learn from those terrible times. But if you don't, I feel like if you don't mourn it, if you don't take that moment to kind of live in that hurt, it's not gonna, the lesson won't be as good because you won't feel the pain. I think you always have to feel the pain to learn the lesson. So I think that's key. And then the other thing is, we talked a little bit about this, is you have to be intentional. I think, and almost kind of, after I say like feel the pain, be emotional. When you're making the decisions, when you're thinking about who to work with, opportunities to follow, pivots that your business are going to make, you have to be very thoughtful and intentional about it, and almost in a cold, emotionless way. Because the thing that's going to ruin you is impulse and emotion. The biggest mistakes I've made, the things that have cost me the most time, effort, and money, were when I got caught up in the moment, got caught up on a high, got caught up in a self-ego moment of whatever, and didn't really sit down and kind of an emotionalist, thoughtful, cold-hearted, for lack of a better term, way, say, is this the right thing for us in the business? So I think there's an element of that too, where you have to, yes, so there's live in the emotion when things go bad, and then when you make the decision, take all the emotion out.
Nice. I love it. Well, Peter, it's been a pleasure having you on. So thank you so much for being an amazing guest on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was awesome. I really loved it. It was a lot of fun.
You just checked out the Law and Finance Show, where we bring you great, insightful interviews that talk about the business and the financial side of managing a law firm. So subscribe to the show and check out more of the great interviews.